Your Beautiful Remake. Written by Cheyenne Ada, 141, Otherwise Me. Cover art is mine. I made it myself. The Gotcha Club designs of Judai/Jaden and Johan/Jesse was made by Haim of Shyness. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX belongs to Konami. OC's original characters belong to me as well. Main shipping/pairing is Spirit Shipping and Dark Spirit Shipping. There are other pairs, but they aren't the main focus. Japanese names would be used. Summary: love is something uncontrollably, but is given freely. Link for story will be in the description if you guys want to read it for yourselves. Warning: yaoi, gender bent, just for 2 characters. Cussing, mentions of death. Inspired by my OG work to make it better and a few YouTubers and fanfic writers. By the way, I am trying something different this time. Now on with story.
Chapter 4. Yugi was in a cell that actually was a pretty nice cell, with a comfortable bed and nice decent-sized bathroom as well to use in private, but there was no way out beside the only cell door keeping him there. He had asked why he got a really nice cell out of a normal cell prisons, and their reply was, "Master, doesn't want to piss off the Nameless Pharaoh if anything happened to you." How they knew of the Nameless Pharaoh did make him curious, since not many knew of the truth of the Nameless Pharaoh and him sharing a body once upon a time, or the fact he helped Yugi in a lot of his duels. As Yugi thinking to himself, his cell door opened the door and a guard entered the room bowing to him very respectfully.
"The Nameless Pharaoh's host, my leader wishes to speak to you."
The guard was very respectful towards him, which made this guard seem to be misplaced in a place just like this.
"Call me Yugi,
He smiled to the guard sweetly.
and I'd like to meet your leader anyway. So lead the way."
With that, Yugi followed the guard into the hall of the many cells. He made a mental note that his cell was the only one out of the rest of them that nice and was the newest yet the oddest. Yugi was led through many multiple halls and past many doors. He felt extremely uncomfortable in this place. It felt very wrong here, but he didn't know why he felt this way since everything else seemed normal, such as the guards, the people had who taken him, and the building itself. But deep in his soul he felt this place was very wrong, and it unsettled him how the aura of this place was so filled with pure light that felt would corrupt a normal person. But thankfully he wasn't a normal person to get easily corrupted by the light, even though he himself was a Hikaru. They reached a room with French wooden oak doors that were painted white, and the guard did a Pacific type of knock on the door that was like some type of code before the door was opened inwards. Yugi's eyes immediately had to blink a few good times to get used to the white room he was made to enter. The room had a white throne, white carpet on a marble floor. There were even glass-stained windows that were white with golden stars upon them. Everything else in the room was just white and gold colors, but the white overpowered the golden colors within the room, leaving no room for shadows to be around besides under people's feet.
"Mr. Yugi Muto, the king of games and the Nameless Pharaoh's host."
A voice came from a person upon the white throne. Their form was covered by a white robe, their blonde hair pointing out of the hood while the rest of their face was hidden.
"Welcome to my domain, but I can't let you leave."
"And why can't you let me leave?"
Yugi asked carefully and calmly, trying to understand this person's motives and reasoning.
"For multiply reasons. 1, you are the Nameless Pharaoh's host, and I do not wish to cause any of his wrath if something were to happen to you. 2, I have plans and I can't have you interfering with them, because you can read the tablets of the history and the prophecy upon them.
The person hummed out.
And 3rd, you are a Hikaru, a being of light, and the leader of the Hikarus. It is very well known that not many are chosen like Hikarus, and while Yamis are."
The person stood up from their throne and walked over to Yugi, causing him to back away, feeling uncomfortable by the closeness of the other male.
"So keeping you here is good for my plans against the darkness, especially with the Supreme Queen's reincarnation."
"What is your plan?"
Yugi asked, keeping his composure calm, and kept his facial expressions blank, so the person couldn't see his true emotions towards the men. He could already tell that this person was completely insane and wanted control over the light side completely.
"I'm keeping that to my chest."
The person said as he stood in front of Yugi. Yugi could see a pair of light orange eyes that look almost golden but wasn't truly golden.
"It's best to keep things closely to my chest, and if I told you, the shadows would leap away from you as soon as you leave this room to tell anyone who can understand them my plans if I had told you, so I rather keep them to myself."
He nodded his head to the guard to take Yugi back to his cell.
"Come on, Mr. Muto, You must go back to your cell now.
The guard bowed to his master before turning to Yugi with a small smile, and Yugi nodded his head, truly not wanting to be in this person's presence any longer. As they reached the doors of the room was when the person's robe's hood completely slipped off their head, revealing what they looked like underneath the robe, and Yugi was surprised to see that the person looking a lot like Johan Anderson and heard him say as he left the room,
The fate of wheels are turning, brother. Are you going to rejoin the dark side as in our lives before? Or join me?
Before Yugi was even out of the room, Yugi was put back in his previous cell. The cell was now different from what it looked like before and was very bright than before, where shadows were barely around unless under his feet and under the sheets. His shadows couldn't leave him to go warn the other Hikarus what's going on. If only this place wasn't this bright, then maybe he could have told them what was going on and to save him, and he wished he had his cell phone to contact anyone from outside this place. The guard stayed with him and looked so relieved, like how Yugi felt about being away from the other guy's presence, that made him uncomfortable.
How can you do it?
The guard asked him while leaning against the wall of the room, taking off his helmet, revealing his white hair and violet-colored eyes. He had light blue highlights at the end of his hair tips.
How can I do what?
He asked, sitting on the bed looking at the guard with an eyebrow raise.
You can be in the leader's presence without any fear.
He told him while looking at his helmet.
Something about the leader is just wrong. Everything he does for the light is just very twisted and sick.
I think I can stand it, because I've faced many bad guys before, and they all tried to destroy the world.
Yugi told him honestly with a soft smile.
So, what's your name?
Karasuyui.
The guard told him.
The leader hates my first name a lot because Karasu means raven and treats me horribly a lot more than the others when we make mistakes or do something he doesn't really like.
He sounds like a terrible leader.
Yugi made a disgusted face at how that guy treats his loyal subjects.
Why do you even stay?
We all have reasons to serve him.
Karasu sighed out.
For me, I owe him for allowing me a place to stay when I lost everything that I had cared for. The love of my life left me when our son died in hospital. My parents abandoned me when I left with my love, with all their money making me to get disowned because I was full in love with the wrong person, and the person I truly felt like a brother just ghosted me when I lost my house and everything else. So, the leader found me one day starving nearly to death, told me if I served him for the rest of my life then all my debts to my parents will be paid in full and I'd have a safe place to sleep and eat. I pledged to him like a fool when he only targeted me when I was at the lowest point in my life. At first, I honestly thought he was a very good, kind man. But sadly, as the years went by, I found out I was wrong, and now I'm stuck here with him like many others because of his false hope he had given us all in a time when we were all at our lowest.
I'm sorry for your loss.
He told him honestly, feeling very bad for the man telling him his story and that he lost his only child.
I wish I had my boy back. If he was here, I wouldn't be here stuck forever in prison to a man who actually doesn't care about anyone but the light.
Karasu put his helmet back on.
Anyway, Mr. Mudo, I gotta get back to my duties. If you do need anything, just say my name or ring the bell by the door so someone can take care of your needs.
With that, he left Yugi alone in the room alone. Yugi waited until Karasu was far away from the cell. Yugi looked everywhere in the room to try to make shadows be able to move them to the open glass window, which was opened and barred, and as the day went by Yugi felt joy in his heart as the shadows from the bars grew. He quickly sent Kuribo from his deck with the limited shadows he had and sent the dual spirit away, hoping that the Kuribo could find someone to get him out of there. All he had was hope now, and which was actually all he had left now. Chapter 5. Johan had finally managed to calm down, even though he still wasn't happy about everything, as Jim drove his car with Hasselberry in the passenger side seat next to Jim. He was looking right out of the window where he sitting watching the world go by in greens and blues, his mind flashing with images of Judai running straight through his mind both before and after Judai had been fused with Yubel. He himself had a hard time forgiving Yubel for what they had to him back during his dual academy days, but he eventually had forgiven Yubel and understood why they done what they had done. Now that Johann was really calm, he had noticed that his eyes had been a dark golden-orange color going back to his normal emerald eye color very slowly in his reflection, the car door's window making him curious about the sudden change. Cobalt Eagle flew high in the sky above them within the sky above, and now that Johann was actually calm, Jim took the opportunity to ask burning questions he had for Johann.
So, Johann, care to explain why your crystal beasts are able to solidify now?
He carefully asks, not wanting to set the other off again, not like back then in Kaiba Corp.
I don't understand myself.
Johann admitted as he stared out the window as he answered Jim's question.
It's just been a thing since my forced temporarily fusion with Yubel, and not to mention at the same time I had noticed that I had also stopped aging after the fusion happened. I don't even know why or how, but I have feeling Yubel knows, and they most likely know more about what's actually been going on with me and what's written in that notebook the king wrote in.
Jim and Hasselberry share a look of concern with each other that Johann can't see.
How can you be so sure Yubel knows?
Hasselberry asks Johann carefully, not wanting to set him off again.
Because Yubel was created during that time period of those deceptions, within Yugi's notebook it had mentioned Yubel's creation within what was written too, and I have a hunch that Yubel wasn't obsessed with Judai's past life self as how much as they are now.
This information surprised both Jim and Hasselberry, Jim more so since he read a bit of the notebook.
Johann, how were you able to read what was written?
Jim asked him worriedly, pulling over into a gas station to get more gas in the car and food they can snack on in the meantime. Giving Hasselberry the Kaiba Corp credit card they were allowed to use temporarily with Kaiba's permission on this trip to find Judai.
Yeah?
Johann finally looked up at Jim, confused. Jim was relieved that Johann's eyes were back to normal. Jim gets out one of the copies of the notebooks he had on him and goes to a random page and shows a sentence to Johann.
What language do you see this as?
Johann was confused and didn't understand what Jim was doing.
Japanese?
Johann simply replied with a confused tone.
Johann, that's not actually Japanese.
Jim took out a pen.
That's the ancient Greek writing. Now, I'm going to write something in that language, but I want you to watch me write it down.
Jim starts writing. At first Johann didn't understand the writing at first, but when the words suddenly turned to pure Japanese like magic, it read, "Hasselberry is cute."
What the actual fuck?
Johann whispered, but Jim obviously heard him because of the surprised look on his face that Johann actually cursed in front of him. Then Johann decided to speak again, but louder.
It was wiggly lines before it suddenly changed like magic.
Just as I suspected.
Jim said as Hasselberry came back with a few bags of food and drinks, like snacks, pop, and tea as well as juice. That wasn't just the water that Johann had in the back of his car.
Johann, your brain is automatically turning the Greek language into something you can actually read.
Jim texted on his phone so after to Kaiba as Hasselberry but the bags in the car before putting the gas pump into the car.
Since this isn't normal, I'm telling Mr. Kaiba so he can document it.
Afterward they got back to driving. After a while of driving they arrived to a cheap hotel since they didn't really care where they slept just as long as they got the actual rest they needed since they've been driving for hours. 12 hours but in total 14 hours. It was never a good idea to drive tired after all, especially since Jim and Hasselberry had noticed Johann trying to doze off every few minutes during the entire car drive from the gas station to the hotel. It had only been 6 hours drive from the gas station after all when they noticed Johann had been forcing himself to stay awake, so Jim and Hasselberry had lied to him that they were exhausted since they knew that Johann he would refuse to rest if they weren't tired as well. Immediately in the hotel room, though, when Johann was completely on the bed and his head on the pillow, he was fast asleep upon making contact with the pillow. Only a few minutes, like 10, had passed when they had watched from their bed next to Johann's that Johann was shaking and starting to sweat in his sleep, and it was very worrisome since it appeared Johann was having a nightmare. Ruby suddenly appeared next to Johann and cuddled up against him, watching him closely.
Jim, I'm scared for Johann.
Hasselberry admits to Jim quietly on their bed. Jim squeezed his hand to comfort the other.
I know, love, but all we can do is trust that the Crystal Beast watch over him in his dreams.
Johann was having that dream again, but it was a bit different now. He can actually see what's going on around him better through the words on the gravestone, which was still completely blurry to him, but he could see clearly, though he couldn't control his body, which was the same as many times before. He can also see faces more clearly now as well. He can see Yubel, who wasn't a spirit but completely solid just like his crystal beast currently. Yubel kept saying sorry and I failed over and over and crying next to the gravestone. The other words Yubel was saying was very staticky, which meant he couldn't hear what the other was saying, which if he was right about his hunch that Yubel knew more was going on, and the scene was very telling that if he was right this was Haouz, Judai's life before funeral. But how was he seeing this and why was in this stranger's body? The uncontrollable rage he felt was there like many times before, but something else he hadn't felt in these dreams before. The feelings of sorrow that was buried underneath all the rage he was feeling. Why did he feel sorrow now out of all the other times he had this dream? And why now did he feel it? But he had no time to think about it. His body was moving quickly and everything he had passed he hadn't ever seen before. Builds that don't even exist and shouldn't exist, and the very extinct lepidodendron tree, and was spread throughout this land. Which was completely impossible since they want extinct 252 million years ago. Even before Yubel should have existed, so how are they here unless they weren't the lepidodendron trees and he was mistaking them for those trees and could be possible. Note: if you actually see these trees in dreams it could mean multiple things. I choose them for their meaning in this scene. But before the dream could continue like it usually does, he was thrown into another dream forcefully, like someone didn't want him to see more than he already has, and now he was in a room full of white marble and gold trimming along the walls and pillars. Johann also could now control his body again, but he felt very uncomfortable because he noticed there weren't any shadows or darkness around, and it just felt very wrong. This place in general was just wrong.
Welcome, Johann.
A voice sounded from behind him, making him jump, only to turn around to see a man who looked just like him but with blonde hair and golden eyes that looked like colored contacts. But he couldn't really tell what the true color was or if it was actually golden. He didn't really care either way.
How did you know my name?
Johann was on edge and took an unconscious step back towards the more shadowy area because this didn't feel like a dream, and he knew he was dreaming because of the dream he had been having before, and he was a bit annoyed since he had been so close to seeing that other guy's face and his own in the original start part of the dream he'd kept having, and the other male looked disgusted by the shadows even being there.
How I know doesn't really matter right now. What matters right now is for you to make a choice. Are you going to join me, or do I have to make you? The choice is yours.
The other male had questioned him, and Johann didn't like either of those options.
I don't like either option, so I'm going to choose neither.
Johann suddenly felt very angry towards the other suddenly, and he didn't feel like he should trust the other male at all.
I guess you give me no choice but to force you.
Before the other had a chance to do anything, Johann was feeling like someone was shaking him awake, taking him out of there, but the other male's next words ring in his ears.
I will find you, Johann, and you will join me, brother, like it or not. You don't have a choice anymore. I won't let you go back to the dark side, not again.
Johann was shaken awake by Ruby, who was very worried about him. He rubbed his eyes and petted her head as he sat up in the bed. He noticed Jim and Hasselberry were still asleep in their shared bed. He took out his phone and took a quick picture of the duo to share with Judai whenever he saw him next. Afterwards, he decided to go get something to eat for breakfast for the three of them and food for his crystal beast, since he wanted to give them something good to eat after doing so much the other day, especially for Cobalt Eagle, for he was still flying in the sky and was most likely starving. But since Jim still had his car keys, he was going to have to walk to the nearest fast food place. As soon as he was outside, he felt relief flood over him from the cold morning air. It felt very nice. Though he couldn't shake the dream out of his mind, and before he got the food for himself and companions, he stopped by a dollar store to get a few notebooks to document his dreams better, and a few pens of different colors and pencils with a sharpener just in case the pens ran out of ink. When Johann got back with the food, he fed his larger crystal beast outside, first giving a big helping to Cobalt before re-entering the hotel room. Since Hasselberry and Jim were obliviously still asleep, he put their share away in the mini fridge before he fed Ruby and himself. After Johann had his fill, he took one of the notebooks and began to write about his dream to have a clearer head and to show Jim and Hasselberry his writings whenever they wake up.